My name's Joe Tucker. I got a mate. His name's Jef Miles. We're in the process of creating a portfolio of properties to give us $150,000 of passive income. We're sharing the tools, the tips, the tricks, the deals, everything that you could think of. We're sharing you the good. We're sharing you the bad. We're sharing you the ugly. We've done a renovation that did well. But did it do great? No, it didn't. It didn't do spectacular, but it's strategic. The reason why we bought it was for a reason. And this is the people's portfolio. This is how we're going to get to $150,000 in passive income in under 10 years. Right now, it's taken 14 months and we have 5 properties. We're coming up to number 6, and that's what this session is all about. Hey everyone, my name's Joe. As I already said, we created the Oz Property Investment Community. We are here, we've got 82,000 members, maybe even 83,000. But each week we interview top property experts. Tonight, it's Jef and I. We're updating you on the portfolio. Where the hell is this portfolio? Guys, it's been 14 months, where it's at. Because we've now hit a snag. We're negatively cash flowed and we don't like it. So rather than sitting on our hands, we're going to do something about it. And that's what this session is about. We also run the Level Up community, which is all about teaching people how to do this stuff so that they can go out there and do it themselves without spending a crazy amount of money trying to learn. But anyway, let's jump into this session because this is how we're going to go from negatively geared to positively geared over a period of time. So let's jump in.
And we are live on Oz Property Investor. We bring the big names, and we have the big Oz 150K portfolio income passive fund. I just messed it up, but it is a huge session tonight because we're negatively geared, heavily negatively geared. So, and then with all these tax changes, we just need to really sort of think about, but also I suppose the holding costs. So we're going to talk about the 3 stages of property investing, and then what are we doing about it next? What is our next property move, and how does that impact you? But finally, we'll wrap off. What is that? What is that? And then we about structures. So individual versus person name. We won't talk too much necessarily about, but stay tuned because that'll have implications to you. How are you going, Joe? What's happening?
Mate, I'm bloody excited. I'm excited. About 13 months ago, we set off on a journey. And we said 14, Sorry, that's why I have you. You're my detail man. You tell me the details that I forget. 14 months ago, we started a portfolio and we said, you know what we should do? We have our own 2 portfolios, that we have ourselves personally. But what happens if we just shared building a property portfolio to $150,000 of passive income? What would that actually look like? And I'm excited for this session, mate, because we're 14 months in and we've hit some really good goals. I'm very proud of what we've achieved. However, and this isn't news to us, but it is a thing that every investor is going to come into play, is that we've hit a very expensive threshold, right? Our property portfolio is very negatively geared, and you can't run negatively geared, for the next 50 years, costing you a shitload of money. The whole point is financial freedom. The whole point is $150,000 of passive income. Now, if we sat on this property portfolio, as we'll talk to in the numbers here. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Jef, how are you, mate? How you been? Look, you're what's going on?
Back on the beverages for August, but no, that's I'm really going really well. I love this sort of false spring that's happening to us now to some extent. It's the beginning because it's going to be cold the next couple of days, but no, it's fun to be back, and I'm not taking a break for a while now, so you'll have to sit through some so it's going to be fun, and I'm excited to go out to some live events because I've got that one. I'm going up in Sydney on Friday night, but we also have the Oz Property Insight. So excitingly, somebody who I networked with 7 or 8 years ago, not Joe. So I've seen he's on the guest list. So how crazy is that? Like a networking group. So these are the kind of connections and relationships that you can build. So jump in. I'm kind of letting people know early, but get in there. We've already got tickets are limited, so I've got that there.
What are you talking about, Jef? What do we got? We got a live event, guys. This is our first ever live event. I don't want this whole thing to be a promotion thing about that, but you should definitely show up to that damn thing. But what you're talking about, Jef, you're having a little property meetup with was it Ricky Chewy? So if anyone knows the meme king in Oz Property Investors, that is Ricky. So you can go ahead and meet those guys on Friday Harbor, I think.
I did tell Ricky mentioning this because anyway. But no, so we have I was going to say, we also have, and I've dropped in the comments now, if you want to sort of get along to the September event, which is going to be Steve, you and myself presenting, but also just a networking. So, but Joe, for those people who don't know us, we are the Oz Property. So you are, mate, an accomplished professional, 15 years, it's probably close to 20, but I don't want to age you too much, but you love your tech, you love your AI, but you are an active property investor. You've got your own multi-million-dollar portfolio, and you've done over 100. I think it's $130 million worth of deals now. So it grows every time you've done it through Property Principles. So, and you've created the blueprints for Level Up Property. So those people who don't know Joe, haven't seen him before, that's who he is.
Check out Level Up Property. It's kind of like a buyer's no, I don't want to say you can replicate the buyer's agency. It's not about the business side it's more about the acquisition side, how to go out there and buy like a buyer's agent. But we also have Jef Miles, guys. The reason why we do introductions is because we introduce guests. So if it's just a solo session, we'll introduce us. So Jef, you guys already know him. He's the co-founder of Oz Property Investors. What we're on right now, he's got his own multi-million-dollar property portfolio. He's got over 10 plus years in financial services. He's bought dozens of deals. He's worked as a broker. He's settled 20 million plus worth of deals, renovated, developed. He's really the financial expert when it comes to this kind of portfolio, and also a lot of other people's portfolio. So he runs successful brokerage called Step Up Loans. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and check that sucker out. And he is a big part of this Oz Property Investor $150,000 of passive income portfolio.
Yeah,
you like that?
Yeah, it's good. I think each time next time we'll. So what I want to say, people, if you have questions about building that portfolio out and how we're sort of getting to that 150K and how to keep building that portfolio, because that's what this is about, getting you guys, getting as many people. Because I was thinking about this today, I was like, just doing this and seeing it and seeing many people do it. I want to know, I want to see people, as many people do this as possible. So for me, that's a big desire and a big fire, big passion, puts a fire in my belly. And that's why if we get as many people, if you come to that live event in September, I'll sort of challenge you first. If you want to be held accountable, come up to me and say hello at that event. I'm setting myself up here. But anyway, Joe, tell us why this portfolio, give us the nuts and bolts and the portfolio stages. And then we'll talk to what we're going to be doing next, the deal that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, here it is. I got a little slideshow. This is, a little slideshow.
Nice one.
You like the slideshow? Yeah, you don't really. So people that are listening on the podcast, don't get too excited about the slideshow. I do want everyone to check us out on YouTube, but I don't think for this episode, you really need to be on the slideshow. But this was the question Jef and I asked ourselves over a couple of beers. Why don't we build a $150,000 passive income portfolio? So essentially, the way it works from a strategy side of point of view, we got Joe and Jef over here. It's what we had to look at was where we are right now. What assets, resources, liabilities, what things have we got here? And where do we want to end up? So then we needed to figure out a time frame. What is the time frame for that bridge for where we are and where we want to end up? How long is it going to take us to get there? So we set an arbitrary number that worked for us, 10 years. So we want $150,000 of passive income in 10 years' time, so that we can have $150,000 of passive income in 10 years' time. Why the hell not? Now, the way it works is with property strategy is it doesn't have to be perfect, because in actual fact, this portfolio now in 10 years' time, and we'll chat through it, we will be on over $150,000 of passive income, right? So we've well and exceeded with 5 properties, already exceeded our ultimate goal. And this is where I think that a lot of people get stuck. They get so stuck in, oh my gosh, this thing needs to be lined up perfect. This needs to be lined up perfect. I want to buy this one and then this one and then this one and then this one. The way it works with property strategy is, what does this next property need to be to allow me to get into the next one? And then when you get to that next one, what does this next property need to be to allow me to get in the next one, which allows you to constantly refine and refresh your strategy.
Can I just sort of take a step back there though? I would say I would go at least one property beyond the next one, depending on your income and how many properties you want to buy and how quickly you want to buy them. If you want to buy 5 properties in 13 months and you've got decent income, yes. But I would feel that you'd need to kind of map it out and sort of plan the structures piece. We've decided to go into structures for the sole purpose that this is a joint portfolio that we've both contributed to. So, but if you're the individual out there starting a journey, you might need a little bit more planning. But at the same time, I do agree with Joe. You do actually, because I see so many people day in, day out, they just say, oh, I could buy in Ballarat, or I could buy in Shepparton, or I could go and buy up in Townsville. Or what about Adelaide? Has Adelaide still got steam? So it's really that action that we even sort of spoke about this with other people as well. Level Up, we sort of said, okay, well, where was the property in West Melbourne in the cycle? Was it in Haystack? And we sort of said, well, okay, well, it was actually for us, it was transitioning into a warm spot. So that's where, and tune into our sessions on that, because we've talked about hot spots and not spots many times. So jump onto old videos. But that's kind of what
there'll be stuff on YouTube.
Yep.
Stuff on YouTube for that. But yeah, it is a good point. You do need a future forecast, but like when you're taking a steady Eddie approach over 10 years, you don't need to know the next 10 exact steps, right? Because every time you make a purchase, you will reassess the portfolio. So I guess what I wanted to do is break it down simply. Property investing has 3 stages. It has the accumulation stage, it has the consolidation phase, and then it has the cash flow phase. And this is typically, if we're seeing a more aggressive approach, the kind of time frames that you will see people are acquiring their assets. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're saying, well, my accumulation phase has lasted 10 years, that's absolutely fine. That's no stress at all. Like, great, that's worked. These are just some more aggressive numbers. Now, for us, our accumulation phase has actually only taken, well, it's not over yet. The other thing to mention actually with these 3 phases. So actually, Jef, can you break down, well, I'll break down the accumulation, and then Jef, can you break down the consolidation phase and what that kind of means? Because this is the phase that we are now stepping into for our portfolio. So
I think we might step back, but we'll see. We'll straddle both the accumulation and consolidation. But go on, explain the accumulation, Joe. Tell us all about it.
So the accumulation phase is all about finding the properties, right? It's building the asset base that's going to get you to your ultimate goal. So it's about accumulating the types of properties that you can go out there to buy. Now, I'm not saying every single property that you buy needs to have value add potential, but as you'll start to see, this consolidation phase with value add potential deals really helps us to keep pushing the portfolio forward and keep growing. So accumulation is really, it's pretty much getting to a point at which the banks then say no to you, or getting close to the bank saying, no more lending. We're not going to lend you any more property, and we're not going to lend you any more debt. So that's kind of where you get stuck. But what will happen is, again, we have cash and equity, borrowing ability and serviceability, and cash flow. There will be points where you've got 1 or 2 properties and the bank is saying no. This might just mean you need to wait 2 years or 3 years or something for that borrowing ability to increase as your income increases and your serviceability increases, but your accumulation phase may not be over. I don't want to complicate this too much, but I hope that is making sense. Jump in the comments saying, yes, this is crystal clear. Joe, you are looking good tonight. But consolidation, Jef.
Well, I mean, so what I was going to say with that is, I think that's, I want to know what people's goals are as well. Like, because this is as much your community as it is ours. We built this community to help you out. So jump into the questions and comments. Like, if you've got that curly thing that's then keep you up at night. But the consolidation stage is where somebody said yes. Ralph said yes. It is making sense. That's crystal clear. But we love to hear questions as well. So if it's not, even if you have a clarification, drop it in there. There's no silly questions. But the consolidation is where you start to think and say, take a step back and say, okay, look, I built this. The reason why you built the portfolio, I said, I want this passive income. I want to be able to have the cocktails. I want to be able to build the wells in a developing country. I want to spend more time, be able to go to the kids' sporting events whenever I want to. I don't want to have to. So it's okay, great. There's that big sort of pot of gold in the rainbow at the end. And that's saying, okay, great. Right now, this portfolio is costing me whatever it is, $70,000, $80,000. Negatively per year, or even 50 if you hold a couple of properties. How do I then sort of start to reel that back in? Because yes, you've got negative gearing, but we don't know. So Ralph asked the question, what is the current value of the portfolio? We'll share that. Good question, Ralph. I love when people are engaged and asking these questions. But for me, I think it's about 4 million roughly at the moment, depending on valuations. But we'll share the numbers, so stay tuned. But it's then about saying, okay, what are those sort of cash cows that I can add into that portfolio, such as granny flats, such as maybe a subdivision, and maybe that might be. So stay tuned. We'll unpack what that subdivision looks like. But it's then saying increasing the cash flow and decreasing how much it's out of pocket for you as well. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. As I said, granny flats, maybe commercial. Too early for commercial and consolidation, I feel. Others may disagree, but that's okay. Granny flats, subdivisions, all those unit blocks potentially as well, duplexes, all that sort of things that are typically higher yields, but may have higher costs. So, Joe.
Yeah. I guess to kind of round out the consolidation piece. Essentially, the point of it is to get the debt down, because what's happening is you're acquiring property and you're going to be getting some debt down, and you're going to struggle with the cash flow side of things. So the consolidation phase is to get things that are going to create value so that you can then do it. Be that the subdivision, be it the granny flat. It's kind of like what Jef was saying. You're going to spend $200,000. The banks say no, you can't borrow to buy a property, but you can borrow $200,000 and put a granny flat on, which will help your cash flow situation and actually put you in a better position to be able to then buy your next property. So those are the types of consolidation strategies that we talk about. And then essentially we have the final phase, which is cash flow. And this doesn't have to be, again, these start to blur together. So we're going to talk to a deal that we're doing on one of our properties where we're adding value to it, which is a part of the consolidation phase, but it is also going to be a pinnacle piece to our cash flow little crown there. So again,
little jewel in the property portfolio crown. I love the questions that are coming through. There's so much engagement, so keep them coming. We love them on YouTube because we just love to grow our audience, but also Oz Property. Joe, you haven't even at everyone yet, and the crowd is rolling. You've got 50 people, but I'll drop some questions. So when do you decide to sell down or redeploy or pay down debt when you're maxed out, is the question. And this has come in from Damien Held. I would say, Damien, if you're saying when you're maxed out, I'd optimally want to plan that prior with your broker team and your accountant. So have that conversation prior to, like, the next purchase. You're saying, okay, you want to strategize and say, if I go this one in the individual name, am I then sort of kneecapping myself to borrow if you want to keep borrowing more? If you're happy to sort of tap out and just sort of take a little bit of a break, maybe the individual may make sense. But optimally, if you want to plan that ahead of time for the next purchase, that is, and sort of have that really in mind. If you've already reached that stage and you haven't planned accordingly, and you want to keep going again, you can, something that we'll talk about at the Oz Property Insights event is sort of say, okay, maybe you sell a property that, yes, you're going to pay some capital gains tax that's not going to grow, and then redistribute that out into structures. But that's an option though, Joe. How do you think about that?
How do you decide to sell down, either to redeploy the capital or pay down debt that when you've maxed out? It comes down to opportunity. Sorry?
How fast you want to go as well, I think, because
it comes down to opportunity cost. Yep. Like it comes down to the opportunity cost. Because if you're in this accumulation phase and you've got 3 or 4 properties that you're stacked out with, and let's just say you bought them in WA and you've made $400,000, you're gonna be able to maybe use a portion of that to go into the next deal. But if the bank says no, then you have a choice. I'm going to have to sell, and instead of having $400,000 worth of equity, I'm going to have to sell and have fees and tax, and I'm probably going to have $200,000 of cash. Can you do more with that $200,000 of cash than you can? So that is just a high-level snapshot. Really, I get this question asked a lot, and it just, like, there's no real easy answer. It's just dirty, annoying, boring numbers to crunch what you believe to be true in that market versus where the allocation of capital can be in the other market.
My answer is, how fast do you want to go? Because if you want to go fast, you got to make the hard choice and make it happen. If you're happy to slow it down a bit, then maybe you can just hold and take some equity out and then consider, I mean, I'm not saying other asset classes, but we've got some questions, and then we'll throw into, for me, I want to confirm that building a portfolio won't stop cash flow for the family. How do you consider cash flow impact? Well, the deal crunch calculator is that one that can really, because you need to consider the deal. And you can do this for each of your property to sort of figure out how much it is costing you. Speak to your accountant as well, and then they'll tell you roughly how much it'll cost you after you get your tax back. So, yeah, I think that's an important consideration, because realistically, at 80%, 85%, it's most properties are going to cost you somewhere between 10 to 15 to 20K at where interest rates are at the moment. Maybe interest only a little bit less. But yeah, that's the kind of situation you need to consider. Like, what is most important to you?
Yeah, exactly. It is like, what actually is the purpose of investing? The purpose of investing is to sacrifice, like, hard work now for easy life later. And those are the choices we've got with everything. Do I sit at my desk and eat KFC all day? Or do I go out and do some exercise? So I don't know. KFC is probably not the best thing for me. I need to have some exercise. Investing is exactly the same. Hard choices now, easy choices later. Easy choices now, I don't want to say it, hard choices later. So you've got to, but you still can't balance it. You can't just invest every single dollar that you earn, because you've also got kids. You also want to invest in holidays, and you also want to invest in experiences and time. You can't get that stuff back. Every time I talk to a parent, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I had those times back. So that's an investment in itself. So, it's a balance. Everything is a balance.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can have anything, but not everything. So I feel we're answering a lot of questions, but I just love that engagement. And I've popped Deal Crunch. Yeah, I know. It's good. It's going to be on a break. So let's just say we'll finish off on this question, and we'll go into some more of the content. Well, cash flow, as in passive income, eventually after consolidation, selling down certain assets, whether that's a turn to sell residential to buy commercial like Steve did after. I would say that sometimes commercial, if you're not comfortable with commercial, maybe that's a unit block, like a 4-on-1 title, like our Geelong unit block show. Or maybe it's, look, as dirty word as it is to say, maybe like that's a share or ETF kind of situation, which, yes, you don't get the leverage from. Gurov will be happy I mentioned that. But yeah, that's yeah, it doesn't have to be commercial. There's other options out there. But yeah, should we unpack the numbers, Joe, before we then go into the deal or what we'll be doing next?
Yes. Let's do just that. But before I do, I just need to get my screen ready to rock. One thing that so let's just take a step back, because we're all a bit excited right now. What I want to do is break down the acquisitions that we've made so far, so that everyone's up to date, because this is the first time listening to us, or that you've followed us along the entire journey. 14 months ago, we made the decision to go out there and build a portfolio. So what we did is, we are aggressive investors, and we have gone out there to purchase multiple properties. So number one was in Victoria. A wise woman once said, you can have everything you want in life, just not at the same time. Very true. Very true. Okay. Victoria purchase. We bought a property for $606,000, and all we did was a light renovation and put a wall up, and that property is now worth $660,000. So we spent like $10,000, put a wall up, now got $660,000. So that has given us $54,000 of equity, right?
I think these are slightly out of kilt, in terms of, but that's okay. Anyway.
No, it's because they're in different trusts. So this is one thing about so we've got Trust 1, Trust 2, and Trust 3, because we're optimizing for land tax and situations like that. So Trust
Doesn't
1
matter in Victoria, by the way.
Oh, it's very true. Yeah.
Not punishable.
Okay. So property number one, 606,000 is now worth 660. Go us, go team. I reckon it's probably worth a little bit more, but I haven't updated it recently. Number two, we then purchased another property that was a 2-bed, 1-bath property on 800 square meters. This is called our Townsville subdivision. And we're going to be talking in detail about what this subdivision looks like and what this means. So stay tuned for that. $435,000. I looked at the valuation today. It is $540,000. So this property in the last 14 months has grown $105,000.
According to the bank, at least. But yeah,
I'd be the bank. No,
I'd be caught. Yeah, I'm unfortunately getting some. Yeah, with some second and third tier, they're starting to pull back on those Townsville valuations. I think you could, which is disappointing. But anyway, that's where you could order multiple. But if you're stuck with one lender, but yeah, Townsville subdivision will be an interesting one, and the valuation, I reckon, that could be even more, Joe. than 540.
Even more. And then our third purchase was a Geelong block of units. So essentially, the way that we thought about these blocks of units, it is $1,015,000. We negotiated $10,000 off the purchase price, so we got it $1,015,000. That property is now valued at $1.2 million. So we've made $185,000. The way to think about these things is, like, I know sometimes it's scary to invest $1 million, but essentially it's 4 units. So $1.2 million divided by 4, that means we have $300,000. So essentially we've just made 4 $300,000 acquisitions because they're units. The goal is to strata subdivide these, and this property right here is going to be an absolute money maker for us, because we're going to individually strata title these. We're going to pay $40,000 in acquisition, in subdivision costs to individually strata title them and sell them instead.
Have you checked that number, by the way, Joe? I think it could be 60 or 70, but anyway, whatever the number is, it's going to add lots of value.
Yeah, it'll add. Yeah, no, I checked it. We did the guy and got him out there, and he did all the things.
Oh.
So yeah, it's checked. You're now making me question. You're now making me question it.
You're looking at it now. Oh, you're adjusting numbers.
Yeah, zooming in.
While you're adjusting numbers, somebody said, "Have you guys tapped into Super SMSF for this yet?" Just to be clear, this is a combined portfolio in various structures with joint ventures behind the scenes. So we don't. SMSF.
No, not joint venturers. There's no other people. There's Joe and
a joint venture. But yeah, so the super, that wouldn't work for this arrangement, because then I would have to form an SMSF with Joe. And I mean, I like Joe, but who knows where we're going to be.
No, we wouldn't. No, we're not that. We love each other, but we're not in love with each other, if that makes sense.
No, but it's an interesting question though, because Joe, because I have money sitting there on my SMSF now, between the sort of family unit, we'd probably have 200 to 250. Now, I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't go and speak to your financial planner and accountant, but it's really something I've just like, do I need to be putting that money to better use? And the way I think about that, at least, is I'm like, in 5 or 10 years time, I'll probably start to be considering that a little bit more heavily once I get into my early to mid 40s, because then I can see what that sort of landscape looks like a little bit clearer. People may disagree with that, but what do you think about that anyway?
Well, the way I frame self-managed super funds is, I'm a property investor and I'm very active and I like to do stuff, and I hate sitting on my hands and I hate not being able to move. So when the bank tells me no, and I've got $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 sat in my SMSF, and I look at my returns over the past 10 years that I've gotten, and I'm like, hold on, I've got just $200,000 and you're giving me like a 3%, 4% return on my $200,000. Let's say it's 5%.
8%. I reckon you get 8% easily. Well, not easily, but you could.
Okay. Well, don't make me go off on a tangent here. But I think if I'm fast enough, I can bring up a calculator that talks to exactly this topic, right? So, like, why do we have our money just sat there doing absolutely nothing? So let's do it. Okay, you've got me, Jeff. You've hooked me. Okay. We have $200,000. Right? We have $200,000 of initial capital, and we're going to go and invest this into the share market. We're going to invest this into the share market at a 7% return over 30 years. This is our self-managed super fund.
So, sorry, Joe, but I'm going to say this information is purely for general information. This is not personal advice. Go and speak to your accountant, financial planner, particularly for this thing. But let's have a chat about it.
Yes, this is not. Yeah, good point. Very good. Okay, so now what we're going to do as a comparison is use that $200,000 as a deposit, and we're going to go buy an asset that's worth $700,000. And instead of, the average property growth has been 7.2 or 6.9% over the last 30 years, depending on who you ask. Let's run this at a 5% growth rate. Okay. Let's look at the difference of what happens if we go down option 1 or option A or option B. And it gets absolutely smoked. Like, this is what happens when your portfolio starts to grow. How much net equity do we have? The difference is $1.5 million over 30 years. So
and yes, for those out there screaming at the screen, you can leverage in shares. Can you do it safely? Yeah. Maybe not as safe.
I have not met many people who leverage shares. Like I've met people that buy ETFs that are leveraged, which is great. You get a little bit extra bump. But anyway, look, it's $3 million in 30 years time. If you based on these numbers here, it would turn into $3 million asset. And then a $1.5 million. So your $1.5 million difference. This is why I think people are really considering self-managed super fund, because they're sitting on their hands. Anyway, I feel like we've gone off on a tangent and we haven't finished the acquisitions that we've purchased. We've got a lot of energy tonight. We usually have guests and they just kind of roll with it. So I feel like we're jumping around just a little bit, but I just want to round out where the portfolio is at right now.
I'm keeping us on track. So
thanks.
Good stuff, Joe. Keep it going.
Okay. We bought our unit block. That is a that's made us, however much it's made us, $185,000. We then bought a full renovation, which was a bloody nightmare and it was really annoying. But we wanted to buy in that market. There's no way you'll ever be able to buy a property in that market for $530,000 ever again. We did. We spent a lot of money on the renovation. We got the value to $645,000. So we have $115,000 worth of equity, but we did spend like $80,000-$90,000. So that's not really a massive chunk of cash, but we did it because it was a good property in a good location that we could buy at the right price and not overcapitalize on our renovation. And then the fifth one is our most recent purchase. This is a deal in Victoria. We paid $650,000 for this. This is a corner block. This is a corner block, yeah, $650,000. It's still valued at $650 because we just purchased it, so no equity just yet. But we are going to subdivide that because it had a pre-approval, an application for a 2-story house on it. We're not going to do that right now. Again, we're in the consolidation phase, but we don't need to build that portfolio just yet. So far, the property portfolio is $459,000 worth of equity up, and pretty cool. $920,000 worth of equity. We've got $183,000 worth of usable equity. It's at this point you guys are saying, holy crap, Joe and Jeff, this is a stupid portfolio. This has nothing to do with me. You guys have jumped ahead of the game, and like, I kind of hear you. Like, when we started this portfolio, when we had 1, 2, 3 purchases, it felt really real and attainable. So the goal here is to, one, build $150,000 of passive income, but also create content that people are going to enjoy. So if we have our own portfolio, this is not an overnight success. This is us working our asses off over the past 10, 15 years, building our own portfolios to be able to afford to do this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to put that caveat on that because I understand this is not what everyone can do. But what I want to show you is this: the 3 to 4 conversion that you can do if you go out there and do it correctly. The unit block that you can strata subdivide if you're smart enough and know how that works. If you do the thing, the Melbourne renovation that's made us $115,000. The subdivision that we're doing in Townsville. Like, all of these little things add up on value. But yeah, just know that. But also, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Show us the negative cash flow, Joe.
Oh, shit. No, I don't want to show you. Okay, let's go through the macro numbers. We have 5 acquisitions. The asset value is $3.7 million, almost. $500,000, $460,000 worth of equity, total equity gained. Total value at cost, $100,000. Total cash down, $650,000. So this is cash and equity. So $650,000 is not a small amount of money. Annual rent is $166,000. Our negative cash flow right now is $111,000 every like this year. Now, one point that I want to make is that this is not going to be the same every single year going forward into perpetuity. Our interest rates are on average 6.8. So if we drop this down, I'm going to drop this one to 3, which will then drop the average.
You're not going to get 3% interest rate.
No. Just watch this average, because this will change the debt situation. So let's say we drop it down to 5.3%. That negative cash flow was $111,000. By losing 1 percentage point, it's now $80,000 negative. Again, very, very expensive and difficult to hold, but more realistic. So this is the challenge of when you acquire a lot of properties very fast in a portfolio in a market that has interest rates at 6%. So It's not all smooth sailings. Yes, I know I made it sound really good because it is really good, but just know that it is negative. But what happens is if you buy this property, if you did this over 15 years, it would be a lot smoother from a negative cash point of view.
Yeah.
Right. So
As
deals
I
Jeff and I
was
bought.
saying, there's about 10 to 15 to 20K negative per property, which kind of the reason why it's a little bit more with this one is because the unit block, the yield is pretty good on that. The gross yield is about 6%, but the debt is also higher as well. So, and Joe, all these are pretty much interest only, aren't they, as well? Somebody asked that question. So that's something to point out as well, because I have this conversation, and I'm sure you do as well, day in, day out, interest only versus principal and interest. Because yes, the challenge that some investors may face is if after 5 years they can't roll over that interest only period. So then the challenge is you have to really be sort of de-risking that portfolio and saying, well, okay, if I can't get that, then that probably flips to, this is probably about 180K principal and interest, maybe a little bit more, maybe it's like 200K. But look, I think for us, with our portfolio and our situation, we probably can roll them over pretty comfortably. So somebody said, what's the fix? Daniel, the fix is coming. All right. I mean, that sounds like funny.
I wondered what that was.
Yeah. Well, the fix is the solution to the thing. And let's not talk the solutions yet. How much equity and borrowing capacity are you sitting at? Well, Gurav, it's a good bloody borrowing capacity, you could say.
Yeah, I don't. We haven't hit the peak yet.
And Ralph had said, how many people can afford 150K per 100K per annum negative? I'd say probably 5 or 10% of the population, roughly. But at the
I feel like that was more of a rhetorical question, which is an absolutely fair one that not a lot of people can. But if you bought these 5 properties over 10 years, it would be in this would not be an issue. The negative cash, you would be I haven't run the numbers on it, but if you bought this over 10 years, 10 years ago, you bought property number 1 and property number 2, property number 3, it would be looking like you wouldn't be in this problem. The reason why it's so terrible for us is because we used a lot of cash and a lot of equity, and we've done it all incredibly fast. And that means there's a lot of debt, and debt is very expensive now, and it's not great.
But even Joe, I would say somebody in a position who's only bought 1 to 2 properties in the last couple of years, they're still about between 30 and 40K negative. So it's not, even for that person on the mum and dad starter portfolio, it's not all sunshine, rainbows and lollipops when you first start off. But that's where I suppose what you can do, the levers you can pull after 5 years, after 10 years, you can start to then recast those loan terms, which means you're going to pay more interest over the life of the loan. I don't want to sugarcoat that and say, but you can then also pull equity and start to reduce the holding cost of that as well, if it's interest only. So there's many ways, and that's what Joe's talking to there. He's alluding to saying, if you're smoothing that over 5 or 10 years, 15 years even, you start to say, okay, look, maybe if you can run at 20 to 30 to 40K, you may still be able to have those family holidays. Elijah's asked a great question, and Nathan said, looks like fun. Well done, guys. It is a lot of fun. It's scary and maybe not that scary, but yeah, a little bit scary. How do you psychologically prepare to hold that much debt? To me, Elijah, it's a number. I know that sounds really funny, but to me, it's like, well, what are my incomings? What are my outgoings? Achievable in 10 years. 100% it's achievable in 10 years, Gurav. We've had Kelly G on the show. She did it in 5 years. She built that portfolio over that. Yes, at lower interest rates, but she's still holding it. We've had Marsa on the show. We've had Gurav. You did it on that time as well, mate. Gurav.
Gurav's questioning the thing that he's done.
Yeah. I love that. No, so it is. Could you do it in 2 or 3 years? That you could do it over 5 to 6 years now, I'd say.
Yeah.
But Joe, should we talk to the solution?
No, not yet. Yeah, just before, I guess the point that I want to make here is that time frame. So I want to talk to the time frame because I think that's a very important question to note. So our time frame is 10 years. That's the time frame in which we want to do this thing. So there's so what do we do in 10 years time? So let's just roll this portfolio out in 10 years time. Joe and Jeff, what are you going to do with it? So essentially, I'll share my screen real quick, and you can see we've got the acquisitions. So property number 1 property number 2, 3, 4, 5, and ignore property number 6 right now because that's coming. You get excited. This is it. So if we bought these properties for 660,000 and on average it grows at 6% capital growth, which in Australia the average is 6.9% to 7.2, this property in 10 years time would be worth $1,181,000, right? So bought for 660, it's now worth 1,189,000. And this is the golden nugget. This is the light bulb moment that I hope a couple of people have from here, is because the in-between doesn't matter. Now, the in-between, okay, it doesn't matter. The in-between does matter. The in-between now and then, you need to be able to survive to hold these things. But I'll show you why this is so valuable and important. But what am I paying now? Like, what did I pay there? What is it worth in the future? And then, so yes, it's gone from 540 at 6%. Now, the unit block, I don't believe is going to grow at the same rate. But in all fairness, we're going to do a subdivision, sell off the debt anyway. But yeah, I've just undershot that at 4% rather than 6% because cash flowing assets typically don't perform as well. So we've bought in for 3.695 million, and in 10 years time, it'll be worth $6,244,000. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, why does that matter, Joe? I don't really, they're like, that's cool. That's big numbers. Thank you. But what of it? And let me just bring up my what of it. Sorry, Jeff, if you could just fill the silence with something productive.
No, that's good. So Tim said, interesting to note, you put 2 properties performance in trust. Was there any particular reason? I would imagine it was because of pigeon pairing the sort of strategy side of things. And the interesting thing that you can do with trusts and is where you can start to, particularly with the unit block, and this could become quite important down the line, and is a bit of a nugget for some people, is you can start to trend. You can move some of those funds to, and speak to your accountant as well. You can distribute rather than move. So speak to your accountant on this to make sure you're understanding the tax implications and all that. You can potentially move around some of those funds to then sort of ensure that they are sort of looking to pay for themselves. Now, in this situation, yes, it's that 100, but that's where I suppose you want to consider the asset you're putting into those trusts as well. The other thing is, and Jez sort of says, be a little bit cautious with commercial, and that unit block you could argue might be considered commercial. It's not, but some people might argue that. So for asset protection as well, just for the risk potentially, that's another reason you may want to consider. Speak to your accountant on that for liability reasons, of course. But Joe, you got your thing ready?
I got my whole point. Okay, so the way it is, we have goals in our life, and our goal is $150,000 of passive income. Our portfolio, if we decided to sell it, is worth $6 million. So this is option.
In 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, our portfolio at those rates that I just spoke about will be worth $6,244,000. The debt that we have is $3,247,000. Once we sell down the portfolio, pay our capital gains tax, pay our sales agents fees, we will be left with $2.4 million. So this is option number 1 for investing in a 6.5% returning portfolio, maybe a commercial asset, maybe this new asset that we're actually buying into. Maybe we don't sell it, maybe we just keep it. But option number 1 is sell the entire portfolio in 10 years, capitalize that. We can then have $157,000 of passive income. Why? Because the portfolio is $6 million. The debt is $3 million. After tax, we're left with $2.4 million tax-free after 10 years. Not tax-free, sorry. You got to pay tax on that. So it's still got to pay tax on that income.
This is where some planning definitely comes in. Speak to the accountant around how you actually plan that most efficiently. And I think, unfortunately, there is going to be a bucket load of tax paid if you're starting to liquidate things as well. Somebody said before expenses. Gee, good old Girav. He's on fire tonight. Loves it, mate. I keep telling him to start Oz share investors and I'll join. But no, so Joe, what I was going to say is let's talk to that deal because we're at 42 minutes in. I want to sort of whet people's appetites on the trust versus individual. So if you have questions, make sure you stay tuned on that. That's not going to be a huge segment. Go to our Oz Property Insights event in September for that. But Joe, tell us about this deal that we've got coming up and what we're going to do next. Because I think we sort of went loggerheads a little bit on this one, but I think you may have won me over and given that you're chipping in a bit of. bit of funds as well. It helps.
Yes. Well, the way it works is money solves a lot of problems,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Just before we do, so Bradford Jury said, did you require commercial lending for the unit block? It's typically
Fantastic
4 or more
question.
units, or were you able to keep it? So Bradford, no, you can actually keep it in with some lenders. So even a big 4 bank, you can do if you have the
CBA.
service.
That's who our lender is.
I was going to keep it there, but no, CBA. Okay,
Right.
it is CBA. So you can do most of the big 4. You can do 3 on 1 title at the moment. CBA does 4. Look, there's a couple of second-tier lenders that will do them as residential as well. And I think this one, CBA, this one went to CBA. But yeah, you just need to have the borrowing capacity side of it. If you don't have that, it's going to. I've recently tried to look at this for somebody, and they didn't quite have the borrowing capacity. You can go down. Look, you can if you want to pay a higher rate. There are ways you can make it happen at a higher LVR. So with that way, you either have the borrowing capacity and you do it at a higher LVR, or if you want to do it retail, then yeah, you'd have to send sort of compromise on the interest rate as well if you don't have the borrowing capacity. That is.
Yep, 100%. Great answer to that. Great question. Let's jump to our first sponsor, and then we will go into how are we going to solve this problem of this negative cash flow.
He said a savior would come, one who could see value where others saw fear, a buyer's agent who could turn data into destiny. Behold, Joe Tucker, an award-winning buyer's agent of Property Principal.
Whoa, what is this? Next thing you're going to see is driving off in our Lamborghinis, throwing cash about. You guys know Jef and I, we don't really like to roll that way, right? We've been running this group for 5 years. We've been sharing all the data, all the strategies, all the tools, all the tips, all of the tricks that work in today's market to secure the best deals. But here's the thing though, if you're putting a part-time effort into something, you're going to get to a part-time result. And that's no difference with property, right? If you're dropping $500,000 to $1 million on property, this whole she'll be right attitude gets pretty expensive. What is the hardest part about building a portfolio? It really just comes down to time, knowledge, and execution. So if you don't have the time, you don't know what the heck you're doing, and you're afraid you're going to mess it up, then don't do it. That's literally why I do what I do. Most people don't even realize this, but I'm actually a buyer's agent. I run Property Principal's buyer's agency, and we have helped hundreds of investors get the right properties in the right locations so that they can scale their portfolio to $150,000 of passive income or more. Because why? Because we follow some core principles. We use a lot of data to pick the right locations. Think about it, the hot spots before there's ever heat. We get boots on the ground in every single location that we buy. And I have been there, checked it out, and approved the area. And we only buy in areas, and we only buy properties that we would want in our own portfolios. And that's how, in 2024, last year, we got a 21% growth across all of our client purchases when the national average was 4.7%. For instance, Matt and Tina, a young couple, they bought 3 properties with us. They've built over $768,000 worth of equity, and they're still working full time. No dream selling here, but I tell you what, they're going to have a killer retirement. Phil, he's a young kid. He's just bought his first property with us. He's now on to his third, which is super exciting. He bought the first one, $595,000. That is now worth $770,000. He did a great little renovation up front. It's now grown $175,000. That's nearly 30% growth in under a year and a half. So it does take a little bit of time. Gosh, it does get there. Mandeep, 11 months ago, we got him early into the Victoria market, and that property's grown from $555,000 to $610,000 in under 12 months with plenty of runway to go. Yes, we've had some big wins, but it's not an overnight get-rich-quick scheme. This whole property game is about smart, strategic decisions done well and taking the action. So, I'm not here to sell you the dreams, but if you're ready, book in a discovery call. We can chat about what your next move is and if we can actually help. Let's do it.
And we are back. That's how you build this this little sucker, Mr. Joe Tucker.
It's the that's the funny thing, because one of the things I don't talk about, like we're not talking about right now, is choosing the right properties in the right locations at the right time. Like this Townsville deal that we're going to talk to, it's grown $100,000 because we we saw the opportunity in Townsville and we took advantage of it while we could. So it's not just these value add strategies that we're talking about. You still have to pick the right property. You still have to pick the right market. Like if we bought in a place that's got a boatload of housing commissions surrounding it, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to be able to keep scaling. And if we don't get that capital growth from the market, it's very challenging. So you do have to buy in the right market. These are like these supplement. Don't just go out there and say, oh my gosh, there's a great renovator here that I can turn from a 3-bed to a 4-bed. You need to do the research and find out, is this a market that actually makes sense to do the 3-bed into 4-bed? So that's why you don't see the Townsville one as a 3-bed to 4-bed conversion, because it's not the market for it.
Or a 2 to 3. It probably, I don't know if the logistics. Yeah.
No, I don't. I tried in every which way for this damn floor plan because it is a 2. So, okay, what are we talking about? Property example.
What I want to say, so Shane said, do you have the benefit to procure off market for these assets? And it's a very interesting question though, Shane, because I think a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them were off market. One was on market. It was a deal that you buy the deals that you buy for people, Joe. So we buy them.
So this deal right here, and I don't want to name names. Don't want to name names, but I think all of the deals that we have in this portfolio are properties that I had presented to clients and that they rejected for whatever which reason. The main reason for this property that I'm presenting to you right now is because it was a 2-bed, and he's like, well, I don't want a 2-bed, I want a 3-bed. It's like, okay, cool. If you don't buy it, I'll buy it. And this is, we bought it. So sorry.
The interesting thing though, I heard today on a podcast that they were saying that particularly in Melbourne, which is what, and if you're going to buy in Melbourne, I'm seeing this as well. Like a lot of properties are going off market. Like there's so much of that sort of, I think it's sort of increasing to sort of that 40-50%. But to Shane's question, I would be cautious. Well, I mean, I'm not saying every, but I'm saying that's what they quoted. So you could effectively buy that many deals off market if you wanted to. But what I would say, Shane, is just be very cautious of any deal you're presented off market. So understand the reasoning why it's being presented off market to you. Is it because the price, they're trying to snag a buyer at a higher price? Or is there actually value? Like, I don't necessarily think you're going to get that much of a discount buying off market. What you may get is access to a great asset that you can buy before then it goes to the open market, and then maybe it goes for an extra 30 to 40 to 50K more. That's all I would sort of say. If you're expecting a discount, look, maybe you might get really lucky. I reckon maybe 1 in 50, 1 in 100, you might get as an absolute, maybe even 1 in 500 as an absolute banger off market. But I just think that what that gives you is the opportunity to secure it before it goes, and it goes off like a frog in a sock. But tell us about the deal, Joe. What do you think about off markets before we do that?
In terms of off markets, I have literally a phone filled with deals that are off markets, and I have this I still
get heaps of them as well.
One agent that I have in particular, like he literally just sends me all of his trash, and it's just like, I wonder how many people are actually buying this, because
somebody's going to be buying it.
This property here that we purchased was on market. This property here was on market. That property was on market. This property was off market. Like it's probably it's a lot of sales spin. Like you'll hear buyers agents in the industry saying, we buy 78% of off markets. It doesn't mean it's a good deal. On market has good deals as well, because some vendors just want to sell on market. The way that you get a deal on market is by moving fast, acting quickly, and getting shit done. So I would say, don't fall for marketing spin, but move fast on a deal. If you found an incredible deal that's on market, go for it, make it happen. Anyway, let's talk to this deal specifically. This is the actual, like, this is what we presented to you guys when we actually purchased this property. So you can see, I don't know why we didn't write subdivision, because it actually had plans for a subdivision. So we wrote granny flat, ugly duckling, renovator.
Got to send me the
slideshow. Okay, Townsville, here it is. So as you can see here, this property is on here. What we're doing is, it's an 880 square meter block. It already had plans for a 1-into-2 subdivision. What are we going to do, guys? We're going to throw a line down the middle, put a fence up, and we're going to subdivide and split off this block. And that's exactly.
Should we before, for those in the audience who haven't seen the things on video on YouTube or listened to podcasts, I would just say, why Townsville? This was a purchase that was in, I believe, August or July, August last year, was it? Or maybe even September. One of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's say it's been at least roughly 12. Yeah, it's been 12 months since we bought this. So, would you buy this deal now? you would have to be, I think if it went to market, it would go for maybe at least mid to high fives. And in this particular location, you may just be starting to say, oh, look, that's maybe a little bit too much for that particular deal, because people know that there's value in this kind of deal. Whereas back then, we were able to move in quick and get it done because it was already sort of under wraps. Whereas now people have really cottoned on to that sort of 12 months on. So we're not sort of saying go out and buy Townsville tomorrow. We're not saying not buy it, but just say you need to be really cautious of your comparable sales, because just make sure you're doing that in any market, not just Townsville.
Well, look, and I guess that's the point that the client had a bit of a challenge on. Like, there's not a lot of 2-bedroom properties, so comparables were a little bit difficult to stack the deal. So it's not like I'm not just having a go at this guy for not deciding to go with it, but it is something that just needs to come into consideration. Like with assets that are a little bit different. But yes, Townsville is a market that I still see value in. I still think we're going to grow incredibly well. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to the slides. So that was the plan. That's what we set it up to be. We saw the opportunity to subdivide. What are the numbers here? 435,000, 107,000 of cash, $22,000 worth core. So we turned $20,000 into $60,000. That's now changed fundamentally because we're doing a subdivision. So we're keeping the front house. So what were our options? Subdivisions, extra room. So look, this is funny. Oh, yeah. Okay. So our first was growth location to make $100,000 of equity. Check. Done that already. Midterm, add a wall. That was actually the plan. But in reality, it didn't work out. We can't add a wall. It would take up too much of the living space. So we decided against that. Long-term, strata subdivision. I just meant subdivision. I didn't mean that. That's where we're at right now. So that's the spoiler alert, guys. We are going to subdivide.
You are technically right, because you're strataing it in the sense that you're putting different sort of titles on each thing. Yeah.
No, let's not pull up on a technicality. Strata subdivision and normal subdivision are different things. Yeah, you're trying to pull a technicality. So what have we done so far? Guys, we've subdivided this bad boy. Actually, another point for those that are not coming to, anyone in this group right now who wants to come to this event, throw a little fire emoji or throw your favorite emoji in the group. Who's coming or who wants to come to this this event?
I released a bit of it in the newsletter today. If you're subscribed to the Oz Property newsletter, I dropped a nugget. We're going to be funding a couple of extra I think I said five 1-month HTAB subscriptions. So
really?
And that's all paid for. Yeah. So that was in the newsletter. So make sure you jump on that today, because everybody gets entered into it. And obviously if Jeremy in the Zelly gets it, I might pass it on to the next person. But because Jeremy, these are things like Steve Lee's going to be there. If Steve gets drawn out of the list, I don't know whether
come on, Bradford. We'll see you there, mate.
Coming. Bring your friends, bring your family. I've got but yeah, drop. Definitely jump on
Sunday the 14th of September, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. We're gonna have dinner and drinks after, so you gotta meet everyone. Why am I telling you this? Is the reason we're subdividing this lot is because I spoke with someone in the community. And they were like, Joe, are you taking advantage of this? Oh, we got Matty Brand here. Come on, Matty Brand. I can't wait to meet you, mate. Yeah, are we subdividing this? Are we subdividing this thing? Because there is an infrastructure charge discount. So in Townsville, they are really struggling with supply and demand. The reason why we bought the property in the first place. So the council is now incentivizing developers by saving $30,000+ on an infrastructure charge. So what that means is like connecting all the the sewer, stormwater, and blah blah blah. The council charges you for all of that stuff. So that was because I saw a comment in this group and just searching around. They were talking about subdivision, and I reached out to the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, you need to take advantage of it." So that's exactly what we're doing. We're literally becoming people of this, we're doing the things at the group. So I mean, yeah.
So what are we doing, Joe? Tell me the strategy, and I'll tell you the reason why we're going to be doing it, because the numbers really can stack up. But what is this drawing and diagram you got on the page for those
so
podcast?
Okay, so this is what we're going to build. So what we're doing is we're doing a 1:2 subdivision. We're going to subdivide off this lot entirely. So right now we own this property and we own the land, and it's just going to be subdivided off on land. Now, actually, one very important point is in the lease of the existing tenant, when I re-signed their lease, I said we said I'm not going to increase your rent, but you're not going to have your backyard. Are you okay with that? Because we're going to subdivide it off. And they said, yes, that's absolutely fine. We don't want an extra $50 a week in rent. I want to be able to, afford that. So what that did is it's something that you need to think about when you're doing a subdivision on an existing lot with a house at the back. Yeah.
Even something as simple as a granny flat, because it's going to be inconvenient, because I haven't constructed too many granny flats, full transparency, but for me it's going to take at least that 2 to 4 weeks roughly to do a granny, maybe a little bit more, give or take. But maybe you could do it a bit quicker. But yeah, there's going to be that inconvenience of that, and that person's losing their yard. So what compensate? And that's the thing you need to consider when you're doing these value add strategies. This person's still going to have a little bit of yard anyway, but for them, it's probably just maintenance anyway. Like on a 450 square meter, that's a lot of mowing. I don't know about you. Like you got to do the trees, like just so many things. So
yeah, they don't want to do it.
No, I mean, I wouldn't, if it wasn't my property, I wouldn't be all that fussed about it either, to be very honest. So yeah, we're sort of,
very true.
Yeah. So what are the numbers? Because for me, so the rooming house, tell us the kind of logistics of the deal, Joe. Because for me, this is what's potentially you're showing us the actual spreadsheet now. Talk us through these numbers, because normally I get a little glazed over when we talk numbers on a podcast, but just for the purposes, let's do it.
Yeah, this is the point. So we're at about an hour in. So just jump onto YouTube, anyone that's not, and then I'll show you the real numbers. So essentially, land purchase price $435,000, council application fee $2,800, survey and plan ceiling $8,500, legal and title registration $1,500. We then have our infrastructure charges. That's actually before incentive, so $30,000. That actually should be wiped. So I've messed that up. Calculation. This is including the council infrastructure charges. Okay. We then have Ergon Energy, and then any other preliminary costs like the design. So this here that I just showed you is a building design. This was like $3,000, and then there's another full proper next level building design that has all the details and stuff. That's another $5,000 on top of that. So that works out to be about $13,000. This turnkey construction for a 5-bedroom Class 1B rooming house is $570,000. Okay, $5,000 for site prep and clearing, driveway access 10, landscaping, fencing, blah 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 blah, service connections, external certifiers, contingency of $30,000. Total division cost as total construction cost is $650,000. So we're $650 in plus our $58,000, and then we've got now the one thing to mention is. We are financing this 100%, this construction of this property through equity and the end sale value of the property. So we're getting a construction loan to be able to do this.
What it's effectively called, though, Joe, is gross realized value. So you're effectively sort of banking on, I think, the valuation.
Yeah, but that's for development. So like this is like constructing. I guess I'm pulling you up on a technicality, but it's as if construction and valuation, right? Sorry, yeah.
Similar.
Go on. Okay, sorry. Let's just do this. So we are going to do this, but the construction is going to charge us in a staged fashion. So we're not going to cop $650,000 of interest straight up, but it will happen over time as the build progresses. I mean, that's probably something more you can talk on from the finance side of things, Jeff.
Typically 4 or 5 stages, maybe 6, depending on whether they're including landscaping. Typically they won't include landscaping, so usually just a drawdown period stages. So yeah, you're right, and you during the build costs, this will be interest only as well. So you won't be paying. So you can sort of, I mean, we love to do interest only, not advice. To speak to your broker, accountant, all that. But yeah, interest only then sort of helps. That's the key reason we're able to keep holding this portfolio. And that's a thing that gets me really excited is the end numbers, Joe. Could we look at their numbers
Yep.
for the
And
what
numbers:
the rent?
subdivision 58,000, construction 650. So total including finance is 1,173,000. Front house is going to be worth about 500,000 because we've taken the backyard. So right now the entire dwelling is worth 540,000. In 12 months' time, I'm kind of factoring in a little bit of capital growth in the market. The front house will be 500, and then the back house with the rooming house on it will be worth a total of $1,550,000, which gives us an equity uplift of $407,000.
Yeah. So I mean, on paper, that sounds fantastic. I'm gonna, you know me, I love pointing out the risks and the potential challenges.
Yes, you do. Tell me.
But yeah, I'm sure people can see. Well, the risk is that yes, I mean, yes, you got a fixed price build contract locked
Yep.
in. At the same time, yes, I mean there's sometimes I've almost seen fixed build costs almost go out the window to some extent over the last couple of years with COVID, because before, when I was back in broking, like you wouldn't do a construction loan without it being a fixed price, because you're just like, if somebody came to you with a cost plus, you'd be like, the lenders just hate it. They don't like it. Whereas now, and it's settled down a little bit, but to me, yeah, there may be a little bit of extra cost in there. That's a potential challenge. But probably the bigger risk is that it runs over time. And that's probably not as big of a risk as long as you're managing, because this is a very active strategy for anybody. Like, having done a few developments, if you're not cracking on, if you're just like, oh yeah, she'll be right, all of a sudden you get some delays. The builder's sort of just not on sort of point, getting things done. You need to have that sort of accountability with them and just checking in, not micromanaging, not saying, oh, how's that wall, how's that screw going in that deck you were talking about? That's ridiculous. But at the same time, you need to say, well, how are we tracking? Like, have that clear project management sort of Gantt chart that I would like to sort of see. And the other risk, I suppose, is that the market does. Joe mentioned capital growth. I said the market could shift a touch, because if this blows out to 18 to 24 months, what happens in that situation? What happens to the valuation? Maybe the valuation sort of comes back a little bit, but that's where you build in that contingency as well. The other thing I'd like to say is just on the rental thing, because should we look at the actual spreadsheet on, have you factored in the full rental amount, Joe, for that cost? Not cost, for the
let me just
full
bring that
vacancy.
up.
Yeah, because.
Yes.
And then people will really start to see where this can be potentially valuable, not potentially valuable, even if it's only at 4 or 5, because this is a five room boarding house, isn't it?
Yeah, rooming house. Yeah. So essentially, what we're doing, actually, let me just bring up the design, as that'll point to it more. So this is what it looks like as a dwelling.
Can read
But
the
this is
audience.
it. Yeah. So this is the property here. It's got bedroom 1, bedroom 2. Actually, I've got a pen here. Bedroom 1. Now, one thing that you're going to notice is we need to have a disabled bathroom. Actually, one other thing, anyone that's keen will see, like, oh, why is there a step down here? Well, the reason is there's an easement. There's an easement right along here, right along the back. Yep. So that's great for access to the waste, but it's also in the way of the development. But we knew that it wouldn't impact the development, because why? We asked town planners, we chatted to the development people, all that stuff. So there's unit 1. And the way everyone gets, like, I think people get a little bit too like, oh, it's a rooming house, it's going to be gross and yuck. It's a block of units, essentially. This is just a block of units, and instead of there not being a shared living area, there's a shared common area. So it's exactly like a block of units. So unit 2 is here, unit 3 is down there, unit 4 is down there, unit 5 is down there. Now we have to have one disabled bathroom an area. So you'll see that that's 920 square, like 920 or 940 dimensions, and it allows a wheelchair access and all that good stuff. Any questions on that, Jeff? You want to see?
I would, or comments. I would say, though, that it's probably a little bit more involved than a simple unit block, because unit blocks, with this, you need to make sure you got the fire safety, the correct regulations for the state, because you got to make sure, if you're not doing that, you run the risk of not only sort of putting people's lives at, well, there's, first of all, you run the risk of not being compliant, but also putting people's lives at risk. So you need to have all the checks and balances that go with go with the situation of owning a rooming house. So Clinton said, do you normally have to discount the rent in the first place during the building stage? 100%. Yeah, because it's somebody's losing their backyard.
Yeah. We had to we discounted the rent and we asked them to take their yard. So yeah, you do need to do a bit of both of those. But also, like, you need to, if you're like, you don't need to get your neighbor's consent to developing, right? Like, it's only because they're connected that I have to ask their consent. And they 100% were in their rights to say no. In Queensland at the time, with the legislation as it stands right now, they could say no, and then I would say, okay, get out, because I'm going to get someone that's going to accept it. I'm going to put a fence up right now, and then but they don't care. It's just a backyard. And this is a really good point that I've just realized, is that vendors, buying this property with a larger block of land is more expensive to hold. So I guess don't go out there and buy a 1,500 square meter lot because it can be subdivided, because it's going to be very expensive. And if you're not going to do the subdivision straight away, because it's going to be very expensive to hold that thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to buy a development site, maybe get it towards the tail end of your portfolio, because holding a 1,500 square meter thing is going to really affect your borrowing ability and your serviceability and your cash flow. So you just need to factor all of these variables in. I don't want to complicate it too much, but it's just a consideration. Okay.
Well, that's I suppose the challenge, and that's why how we're saying how to keep building a 150K passive income, or 150K income. I've dropped the word passive because this is definitely not a passive play. But at the same time, if you want to get to that stage where, because for most people, they are going to be trapped at that 3 to 4. And what you then need to consider is where you're going to get the cash to construct, because it's either coming from equity or your own cash. But what I would say for the average, not the average, we are average investors as well, Joe. I'd still say we're average. Maybe you say you're a little bit above average, but everybody says they're above average. So if 80% of people are above average, then who's above average? But what I was going to say is, instead of doing this in year 3 of the portfolio, I'm going to say we're year 3, we're year 2, whatever it is. 12 months between friends, 12 months is a long time. You sort of then start to plan this for year 7 or year 8 if you had a 15-year horizon. And then you'd start to say you've got the cash there, or you consider selling off one of the assets if you didn't have the borrowing capacity. So that's where you can really start to sort of map things out and say, look, I don't have to do this now. And we talk about this all the time. It's like, buy the ability to develop the block. And yes, council regs could change, and then you're freezing that equity for down the track, and whichever way you want to go about it. Luke's pointed out an interesting point. Neighbors will love 5 extra cars on the street. Isn't it? There's a driveway, isn't there, Joe? There's a separate, because this is a corner block as well.
Did I give you
so
that?
Not even on the street. How many cars does that driveway fit? Is that 3 or 4 cars?
Hang on, let me just get the other. I was like, oh, no one's going to want the image of where the car parking space is. And here we go. Bloody Luke jumps in and says, I want the car parking space. Yes. So people are going to hate it. But also there's 4 car parks on the lot. So it's not the end of the, like, we're putting 4 car parks there. Why? Because legally we have to. So yeah, that's why we're doing it. Do we want to? Maybe not.
What's the build time? And Elijah said, what's the build time, and why don't banks like a cost plus contract? So build time is around 18 months, isn't it, Joe? You said 12 months, but I'm saying 18 months. The builder said 6 months. Mate, 18 months.
12
every
months.
Day.
Yeah, I said 12 months and Jef says 18 months.
Yeah. If you're having built, look, if everything goes according to plan, 9 to 12.
Yeah, exactly.
And why they don't like cost plus contract is because it's a risk, because it's an unknown. The builder can just say, oh, look, as per the contract, it's now going to cost you an extra 20,000. So banks really hate risk. So if you take anything away from, and that's probably why I became I worked for a lot of banks, because I was like, and that's why I'm probably risk, because it's straight in, it's been hammered into me. Joe, you got the photo of the driveway?
Yeah, I just realized it's a photo of the bloody driveway. Like, it's really not that exciting image, but at least we could. Do you want to just hit the share? I'll hit the share button there. Yeah, essentially we've got four car parking spaces loaded up there. And as you can see, like it's actually pretty close to the existing dwelling, but it's 150 mil, 1,500 mil away from it. There's the 4 car spots. It's literally like we've literally built this within an inch of its life. Building the square, it's 200, around about 200 meter square footprint. But yeah, we got 4 car parks. There's also a whole heap of car parking space. Like in Townsville, I don't know if anyone's been there. I've done a lot of boots on the ground there. Like a lot of the streets are quite wide. It's not like Sydney where everything's cram packed. There's always car spots out the front of people's houses. It's really not a massive deal. One thing I realized, we need to jump to our final sponsor, but I want to run through the financial, like how much rent is this thing getting? What's the financials? How does the cash flow work? What does this kind of stuff look like?
Throw your questions in as well, but also
throw your questions in because we only have 15 minutes left
on individual and trust, just a little bit.
Oh, Jeff, I wish there was 3 investing books that covered everything property.
Oh, Joe, there is. Steve has 3 books now.
That I do, guys. I've got 3 books now. You probably don't even have to follow this group anymore. Just kidding. You want to keep seeing and hearing from me, of course, so stay involved. But in all seriousness, if you want to get the full picture of investing, residential, commercial, and development, these 3 books have you covered for the fundamentals. For OzProp members, here's the best part. I'm giving these books to you for free. Just cover the postage and I'll send them right to your door. Go to policyproperty.com or click the link below and get your copies today. You can also get all my spreadsheets, checklists, and resources free on my website. Happy reading, gang.
And if you want to see Steve in person, apparently he's signing books or something. I saw Jeff is, police. Okay. I've just dropped a link to our Oz Property first ever Oz Property Insights. It's going to be a huge event. I reckon we could fill out a huge room. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm concerned that they're not going to be able to keep us. There's going to be so much noise and partying. But Joe, tell us the numbers. What somebody's saying you said what sort of rents you're predicting per room. Oh, that was one I was going to add. Jeff McIntyre has asked, good name, Jeff. You spell it a little bit interestingly, not with a J and a G. But he said land tax thresholds. Is it critical to focus on this earlier or in the accumulation phase to increase the trust profit to then re-borrow sooner? Would you prioritize, say, in a unit trust setup in this scenario to focus on scaling the portfolio faster at the initial stages? So, Jeff, I'm going to talk purely from a lending. I'm not going to talk about from an accounting perspective or asset protection, all that. Look, banks really they typically aren't a huge fan of unit trusts because it gets a little bit messy depending on how many people you're going to have. They're going to look, the typical setup is the corporate trustee, individual trustee. Banks don't like so much. But in terms of land tax, look, Queensland gets a threshold. My understanding, 300K. Victoria, not so much. New South Wales, no threshold land tax as well. So I would almost, would love to come, guys, but work commitments. Oh, Jets, take the day off.
Take a day off. You've earned it. How much work do you do
on a Sunday?
And it's Sunday, by the way. You get it's the Lord's Day. It's the property day.
The property. But Jet, is there a link to be going live? Look, Jet, take the day off. I'll shout you a ticket, mate. Well, I don't know how much you're earning in the day. But maybe not. Yeah. I shouldn't say there's too many people, but no. So to answer your question, we'll actually unpack. But I want to know the numbers on the show. What does it look like for the rooming house?
Christ, you got the beans today, mate. You're ready to rock. Okay, the way it works is got my little spreadsheet here. Effectively, these properties are going to rent $320 a week to $380 a week each one. The rental in Townsville is ridiculous. The vacancy rates are sub 2%. So we're expecting around 320 to 380, which works out to be $350. We're then averaged out to be $340 a week. So $340 a week times by 5 equals $1,700 a week, which equals times by 12, 20,000. What is it? Is that right? Have I done that right?
I wasn't paying attention.
Sorry.
What is it? 1,700 or 1,700?
88,000. So that equals 88,400. However, this is where people put their rose-colored glasses on and like, oh my gosh, rooming houses do have a large vacancy. So there is a constant churn of people. So we're putting in and factoring in a 10% vacancy. So instead of being $88,000, we're factoring in a $9,000 to $10,000 reduction in that. So that means gross rent is $79,000. Property management is expensive. It's at 20%. And then we've got some operating council rates and fees and things like that. So that is equaling $25,000. We then have our net cash flow after expenses. So this is if we have no debt, we get a positive cash flow of $53,000 after all debt is paid off. However, we're going to be running this sucker at, if we purchase it for $650,000, because we're building it for $570 plus the subdivision costs and blah, blah, blah. Essentially, we're running this thing at an 8.25% yield. So that is what we're buying. We're buying an 8.25% yielding property, and the end sale value is going to be about $1 million. A property just like this, have a look on recently sold rooming houses in Townsville, sold for, I think it was 1.1 or 1.2, in a nicer area than where we are. But a 5-bed rooming house sold for ridiculous numbers. If we can get 900 to 1, we're in a good stead. So we should then get positive cash flow, $53,000 after all is said and done from a cash flow standpoint. But straight out, like with debt, it's going to be neutral. It'll be positive cash flow out the gates. So it'll positively cash flow like $5,000 in year one. And as things start to scale down, it'll then be less and less and less throughout the years.
Yeah. The only comment I'd put a valuation at 950, just because if it then goes at, I do this all the time on calculators now. I just say, okay, look, if it works at a 4% yield, fantastic. If it doesn't, if you can get a 5 or 6% yield, fantastic. But I like to do, if things work on numbers, and if I'm comfortable with that result, and that's what like, name the number. Like, this is kind of the opposite of what Steve used to do, because Steve McKnight, that is, used to say, okay, like, name it, number it and number it. But that was a negative outcome. Whereas this one, it's like, okay, put in like a scenario that's kind of a bit pessimistic. And if you're comfortable with that outcome, let's make the deal happen, I suppose. And it's within your tolerance, because so many people will sort of sit back and say, oh, it's a 4.1% yield, I want a 5%. But there's so much, but it ticks their equity or capital growth equation. So anyway, Joe.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. That's one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing right now for investors is their factor. Like, I mean, it's fair enough as well. Like, you put results on the board and it's like, oh my gosh, I bought this property, like this deal right here. We bought this property for $435,000. It's now grown $100,000. So the yield on this was a 5.2%. However, the yield right now, I think we're getting $420 a week rent. Times that by 52 is $21,840. Divided by the value that it is now of $540. That's a 4% yield. So you can't buy the past. You're buying in today's market. But what you want to be doing is buying in areas that have the capital growth, because that 1% yield, like, that's a massive, like, that's $100,000 of growth. But don't chase yield, chase growth is, I guess.
Or chase as much growth as you can stomach, because
you can afford.
I just want to, because it's not like the cost of things have gone up in reality, like, as in groceries have gone up, like going to like fuel has gone up. Like, I thought I was going to get a discount on my fuel today at $1.70, but it went back up to $2. I was like, oh man, just when I think about filling up, that's the way it plays out. That's the reality though. There's costs there. So buy, as Joe keeps saying, buy the best deal based on at the best price based on your brief, best location based on your buyer brief. I think I didn't do too bad with that. I ad-libbed it. I think I improved it, some would say. But no, so throw your questions in, team, or are you're quickly doing numbers. So, because we're going to wrap this up in about 5 or 10 roughly. So Joe will reveal the numbers as to what, I think you're revealing numbers. I hope you are.
Well, what numbers do I need to, what numbers do I need to reveal?
For the portfolio, that's the overall position once this is complete. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned too much, which I think rents may go up in some locations. Like I think far north Queensland or regional Queensland, you might struggle a little bit with rents. They might start to sort of taper. But I think there's a little bit of rent catch up potentially in Victoria, depending on vacancy rates, of course. Traditionally, Victoria or Melbourne yields pretty poorly anyway. But rents in some areas have gone 15 to 20% the last because some landlords are sold and there's just been a little bit more demand for investors as well. Investment properties are there, but less demand, I suppose, for investors, which means less rental properties available. And because there's population still flowing into Melbourne, mostly international, but they've arrested that sort of slide of people going away from Melbourne. So people are starting to, I don't like the weather down there, but hey, if that's your vibe, then go for it. If you like the Melbourne coffee, then make it happen. So questions on any aspect of this team, because
This has been a ridiculous session. This is one of those sessions that I feel like you got to go like kind of just, we went really hard and really fast with a lot of information, a lot of stuff. Like this is one of those ones you need to kind of like rewind and rewatch core points, because I think everyone's going to get different. Throw in the comments, like what's your kind of golden nugget? What did you take away from this? Because I guess that's the ultimate point of this property portfolio, right? Is to show, like to teach things, teach concepts and ideas and thoughts and show you that, you know, it's just Jef and Joe. Like we're just normal dudes. Like it's what is actually happening out there in reality. And I guess one of the points that I want to make is like, guys, out of 5 of the properties that we've purchased, 4 of them are in Victoria. Like where are we seeing the puck going? And also these deals have already grown $50,000, $70,000, $115,000. Ridiculous, $185,000. Anyway, so it works out like, I guess in terms of like end cash flow figures. Now, if we add this deal in, it gives us instead of having $153,000 at the end of the year, we get $223,000. So we've well and truly smashed our ultimate goal. All we need to do now is hold on to the portfolio, drop the cash flow, and that will help us. But the other point to make is the portfolio situation is going to get a lot worse for the next 12 to 18 months as we build this thing out, because there's going to be $25,000 or $30,000 worth of holding costs that we need to afford. So do factor that in when you're going out there and building these assets and doing that stuff.
People are asking for the spreadsheet, Joe. I think the spreadsheet is only available. We do have one of the spreadsheets that we do share. That's what I said. Luke said, and we didn't mention that. And I mentioned in our pre-chat, Joe, I said there's going to be this, there'll be some handy depreciation. Yes, there will be, because this is a new asset. So how many?
And we're going to hold it for 5 years, and we're going to avoid we're going to get our capital gains tax. No, not capital gains. Our GST component back. So rather than paying 10% GST, we'll get our 5-year holding and not financial advice and blah, blah, blah.
But what I was going to say, so a heap of questions come in. What I wanted to say, there's a deal crunch calculator there that will show you some of the insight. So jump on. Do you want to bring that actually? I mean, I'll drop that in the comments for people. So for Andre, do you want to actually bring up that calculator? Do you have that calculator available, Joe? Or do we have that somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I got the deal crunch calculator. I mean, this is really. This is not the exact one on that list. This is slightly different. It just says level up instead of property principles. But this is the deal crunch calculator. This allows you to kind of see what your net result is. That's 100% free on that link that Jef just gave you. In the level up course, we give you all of the spreadsheets, all of the tools, all of the resources so that you can go out there and build a passive income of $150,000. So everything that we've just shared, we give you the resources to potentially go out there and do that if you do the things that we...
Yeah. So Jez has asked, so what's next after this development? Geez, not giving us any time to. I told Joe we just have to scale it back a little bit. Will you move to the hold phase, or do you see more accumulation? I would like to see a couple more in the accumulation because 150K. Because ultimately I think 5 to 7 years is what realistically it could be done in. But at the same time, it comes down to how our own sort of how much capital we can tip into this sucker. I think I'm gonna be tipping in some a little bit more, so we'll see how we go. That's actually just on top of that point. It's kind of like this is what will happen to you.
Okay. This, as any property investor that I know, I will do a property strategy plan with a first-time investor, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, look at this. Over 15 years, if we do this, and this, like we reverse engineer the property strategy, you can get there. You can get there if you buy 4 or 5 properties. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then in 5 years later, I speak to people that 5 years ago purchased their first property and started implementing the strategy. And it's like, oh, 150,000. That's a stupid number. Why would I want that? I want 200. So your goals constantly change and evolve, which is why your strategy needs to be flexible and change with it.
Or maybe it even actually downgrades. I mean, unlikely that happens, but at the same time,
never seen that.
Well, no, sometimes like life happens, though, man. Maybe somebody close to you, something happens to them, and you're just like, hey, look, this bloody 9 to 5 work, this business, whatever you're running at the moment, you say, look, I'm pulling up sums at 100K. And that's more than enough potentially to live my life, and I just want to do what I want to do. So we just never, Elijah's asking us the tough questions. How many properties do you plan to hold before selling off? Jeez, he's asking us to predict into the. It's a good one. I would say.
Just while you're saying that, we don't need any more. We've hit our passive in 10 years' time. Our portfolio's debt will be less than the portfolio value. We can sell the entire portfolio down, in 10 years' time, but factoring in very not extravagant capital growth rates. Our portfolio will be worth 7 mil. Our debt will be worth 3, and then we'll have $4 million. And after the tax and all of that, we'll have $3 million, and then we'll be living off $200,000 of passive income. So let's just stop now. Like, why we keep pushing it and stuff like that? But where will this portfolio end up? Man, I have no idea. Like, we're just gonna keep pushing, keep going, and all we need. There's 3 core components that you need: cash and equity, borrowing ability, and serviceability, and cash flow. And when we have all 3 of those, we just keep buying. So I don't have an answer. Sorry, Elijah. What would you do?
Well, you can ask Joe that again in person. See if he gives you a different answer, because Elijah's coming along. We're filling. Yeah,
that's good.
You think he's in Canberra, I think so. Yeah, but no,
thanks,
I did promise we'd talk to the individual versus the trust. I think that's a huge conversation. So I may be speaking about that or partially speaking about that at the session. So Shane's even said, seems to really help with development and planning knowledge to manufacture. Many of us would lack this insight early on in our journey. Shane, to be very frank, yes, it does seem intimidating. I actually did a development probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Not probably, it was 2019. So I did that. This is even before Oz Property. This is even before Oz Property Investors was even sort of before we had that fateful beer that one night at the at close to where the Shangri-La Hotel is. Actually, it was at that. I don't know, the Irish pub or whatever it is, the one. But yeah, so Shane, I would say what you need then is you need an expert town planner and enough knowledge to be dangerous. Because you still need to be able to ask and see somebody who's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, but at the same time, ring up the duty planner and just get the basic sort of understanding as to what that looks like, and then you can then start to be more fluent in property development, sort of speak, and understanding, and maybe it's even a simple subdivision like cut off the back, and you don't have to go and build a rooming house necessarily. You can build a simple
or a good buyer's agent.
Well, yeah, that's it. I'm agnostic.
But also ChatGPT. Hey, how does development work? Do deep research. I want you to simply explain the development process. I think we just broke it down pretty good. I think we just broke it down pretty well, but it's got 800 squares. What's the minimum lot size? What are easements? Where are they? It doesn't, me and Jef, I don't know if this comes across, we're not the smartest people in the world.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. I'm speaking for myself. We're not
struggle with tripod.
We're smart boys, but we're not the super smartest boys. So I think that this is one of the things to mention is you don't have to be the smartest, most switched on person to be an incredible property investor.
Just ask lots of questions. Ask lots of questions. I would encourage you to do that. Of anybody you run into, come up and yeah. So somebody said. So James pointed out, is there a reason why no commercial properties at this stage? It's too early, James, because you need to then tip in a lot more cash into. Look, you might be able to get an 80% commercial lend. Which if you're buying $1 million, you can get a 700 commercial, which is you're looking at the best part of 2 to 250K for a deposit. So I would say, it's not rocket surgery, exactly, Luke. So I would say that Geelong sort of satisfies our commercial each for now. Yes, it's not net yield, so commercial may come in down the track. We'll see how it plays out. Just quickly, I wanted to say, can you touch on the use of trust a bit more? We'll do it briefly, and then we'll finish off. Unless somebody's
should I ask an accountant about before? Okay, so actually, this is probably a good point, and I definitely can't speak financially on this. But what I typically see is property investors buy their first 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is where the real questions start to get asked about trust. That's what I
say number 2 these days, because it comes down to what price you buy. If you're buying at 500 to 700, unless your income's like beyond the 200K household income, that's like it's all good. And you're buying properties for 350, 400 in Perth and up in sort of Logan and Townsville. Like if you can get those deals these days, then maybe. But go on, Joe. Sorry.
I feel like you're making a pretty good point. What are you saying?
Okay. Well, so what I'm saying is, typically I would, because yes, the accountant, 100%, make sure they work hand in glove with your broker and whoever that broker is, because, and if the broker's not on board with what the accountant's saying, just ask them, get them in a room and get them to have that, and make sure, if you can, be in that room as well, even if it's a virtual room, to understand what's going on. Either if one person's not agreeing with the other, because the account will come at it from I want to minimize tax, and you've got the negative gearing in the personal name, which you can't get it gets trapped in the trust. And then the broker's like, oh, no, go to trust because the borrowing capacity is going to exhaust. You want to build a portfolio. So there's that mixture there of that 2 conversations. So I agree with Joe. Number 2, maybe the personal name, but you just want to really understand somebody who understands the lenders to go to as well, because not all lenders do trust, and different lenders think about trust differently as well. But also the accountant, you have to have an accountant on board who understands what letter they need to write, and not what letter they need to write, but what they need, what numbers they need to, what numbers you need to hit for them to be comfortable to provide you that letter to say that it can be brought off the table for lenders, because some accountants are really uncomfortable about writing, and I understand it because it is a little bit more involved. So hope that answers your question. I'm trying to think who it is, Anthony. So come to the session anyway, and we'll talk more on that. But Joe, is that your experience as well?
Yep. Yeah. Mate, this has been a really good session. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this. I think that there's golden nuggets within there. If anyone, what are your golden nuggets? What are your takeaways? What are the things that you guys took away from this as value points, and how are you going to change your investing because of this? I hope that doesn't fundamentally change too much. I don't want to be changing lives too much, but would love to hear it. Any other kind of key points to note on, Jef, or should we wrap this bad boy up?
It's a good time. I think there's some good questions that have popped in. What I wanted to say, if it's a fine line between you are happy to pay land tax versus buying more investment properties in the trust as they become positive, exactly you're saying. It's all like it's hard to get. It's like baking a cake. Like usually, if you put the ingredients in the recipe, that's the cake you will end up getting. Whereas if you kind of deviate from that, so you've got to mix. You've got to pick the right cake you want to make. If you want to save tax, then maybe the personal name. But if you want to buy more properties, and yes, you pay more tax and have more costs. So it is a balance for sure. What I wanted to say, Joe, is if people want more getting on, how do people get more Joe in their lives anyway?
Well, you want more me? Just jump on the bloody Facebook group, right? Jump on Level Up Property, and that's where we teach you all of this stuff. And that's the kind of DIY where you guys can go out there and do it yourself. And then if you want me to do it, then I do it as the buyer's agency at Property Principles Buyer's Agency. That's really it.
When do you sleep? When do you sleep, Joe?
Yeah, well, yeah, that doesn't happen. I'm very busy at the moment, but I'm hard life now. easy life in the future. That's what we
Yeah.
want.
I
6
agree
months.
with
Yeah,
that,
exactly, Aiden. Yeah, 100%. Aiden just popped up. 6 months for a rooming house. Your builder's dream. 100%. He's just like, I don't know. Well, he said he could do it, but I'll hold him to it. But factor in 12. Like, when you've been around the block a couple of times, you start to realize that, because but that's the annoying thing, because someone would believe that and they would do their numbers at 6 months, but in reality it's not.
People are loving it.
No,
There's always another section to keep going. Here we go.
Jeff, how do we get? Oh, what you were talking a whole lot about strategy and structuring and trusts and property and lending. Like, how do people get more Jeff in their life?
Oh, I'm pretty busy at the moment, but look, if you're I love helping property investors.
Actually, if you've made it this far into the session, you're allowed to reach out to Jeff about property and lending. But how does it work?
Reach out to me. So book a call. So I booked out for the rest of the week, and I do book my times out because I'm only working with 50 or 100 a year. I know that sounds like a lot, but to me, step up loans is where you can find more. Book a session, and whether it's in 3 months or 3 years, I'm happy to map that out for you, as in give you that understanding as to what it needs to look like. I've got the accountants, I've got all those people on my team to help out as well. So when I say on the team, they don't work for Step Up, but for me, these are people that have helped me build my portfolios. So yeah, love that chat. But yeah, if it takes a week or so, if it's urgent, if you can sort of, I'd love to help people and take the time to really get them to where their goals are. Thanks
also,
very much.
If you're on YouTube, throw us a comment. If you're on the Spotify app, throw us a little engagement on there and a like and do all that.
Give us a 5-star, because we're getting close to 50 people. If you've gotten value, share it with your friends and give us that 5-star on Spotify as well, team, because we want to get this message out to as many people as possible. I'm pumped.
We have 83,000 people in the group and 50 on Spotify. It's embarrassing, guys.
You got to ask for it, Joe. So jump on there. Give us that. Jeff doesn't need any more friends, mate. I always love friends, Luke, as long as they're not impacting upon my 10. All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Have a great evening, and we will catch you on the next one. Let's go buy a property. See you later, or build one.